Three, two. All right, it's time to talk with our featured guest, Emmett Scott. How's it going, Emmett?
It's going awesome. Thank you so much for having me on.
No, thank you for being on. Really quick, I know you told me what before we started recording, but let us know where you're at right now.
Yeah, so I'm out in Denton, Texas. I'm actually in a small town called Crum, but just outside of Dallas here. And yeah, it's where kind of everything started with dentistry for me, and I haven't left. So
Yeah, that's good. So then let's dive into that a little bit. Let's talk about your past, your present. How did you get to where you are today?
my best friend from the age of 2 is a dentist, and he's the one that drugged me into this. Now, before dentistry, I actually graduated in accounting, was in financial planning, sold 2 businesses within that. But what I noticed was really the people who were coming to me for financial planning advice were entrepreneurs. And the question I kept asking myself is, why aren't the entrepreneurs investing in their own business? And I found there was a gap, Mike. The gap is that entrepreneurs, there's a lot of books written for like how to be an entrepreneur. There's not a lot of books on how to scale out of entrepreneurship into like executive leadership. How do you
Mm,
actually grow to a place where things are easier, not harder? You
yeah.
know, if you're doing it right, it actually should get easier as you scale and grow. But with an entrepreneur mindset, you actually get limited because, you know, if you think about like entrepreneurship, it's kind of a hub and spoke system. You're the smartest one in the room, everyone's coming to you. And I think that's why people get into business and they're like, this sucks. You know, this is like overwhelming. I was going to be my own boss, but actually I just feel like, you know, I'm everybody's my boss, right? And
Ah,
so I started a business called The Entrepreneur Life, had a radio show out in Vegas around how to move from entrepreneur to executive, how to scale. And then that's when Chad reached out to me and it's like, hey, I want to open up a practice. And, you know, so I really started looking at dentistry and I'm like, wow, there's a lot of opportunity here. Now, I didn't know what a DSO was or any of that stuff, but I was just like, oh, I want to help my buddy out. We built the dental practice. He really wanted to serve pediatric patients.
mhm.
I'm like, okay, you got to know who your avatar is. He's like, what's an avatar? Well, it's your ideal customer. What's a customer?
Mhm.
Well, it's your patient. Your patient's your customer, you know? So we were
Yeah.
like working through that. And then he's like, well, I want to take care of these kind of kids and I want to do this and I want to do that. So I'm like, okay, what do kids love? Well, they love Chuck E. Cheese. They love Disneyland. They do not love dental practices. So let's build this more around Chuck E. Cheese, et cetera. Okay, what would that look like? Well, you got to have a mascot. So we like figured out what the mascot was. The boys in our family, Chad has 7 kids. I have 6 kids. The boys wanted like a dragon. Can you imagine a 7-foot dragon walking around dental practice? That wasn't going to work. The girls wanted a
Yeah.
bunny, which the boys just wanted to like, you know, barbecue.
Yeah.
So we found that a chipmunk, for whatever reason, was
Ah,
like middle ground, worked well. We made this chipmunk like a wizard, built the entire dental practice around a story around Charlie the chipmunk. And then we called the kids back as prince or princess. They get gold coins along the way, right? Chuck E. Cheese.
yeah.
And then at the end, they get crowned for their bravery in dentistry. Really, Mike, it was like distract, distract. Oral healthcare is really fun. You know, don't look behind the curtain on the reality that you have to get these fillings and you got to get crowns and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
But let's associate this with positive energy. We had 1,000 first visits in the first 3 weeks. And so we're
Wow.
like, okay, we have something figured out here. And so then we started opening up a second location within like 6-9 months. And then we had a third location. And, you know, now we support 70 locations.
Of the
And
same pediatric practice or?
no, now well, so what ended up happening, right, is to support that kind of patient flow, pretty soon you're centralizing services. You got to get marketing, you got to get an accounting department, compliance, right? We were taking Medicaid as well. So you got to
Mhm.
have massive compliance, billing systems, et cetera. And pretty soon we had a DSO, right? We had an entire support system. So then we started supporting really our focus is underserved markets. So anyone who's trying to take care of Medicaid and rural towns or just doing something like very unique in the marketplace, that tends to be where we go and help. So,
Wow, man. And so from that point on, right now, you're doing that.
yeah, so I'm the CEO of Community Dental Partners. and we support multiple brands within the space. Really, our focus is for the entrepreneur clinician. So we think that there's a little bit of a hole in the space in that many entrepreneurs feel like they either have to go at it alone, like Emmet, or they have to like sell their soul to some big DSO, right?
Yeah.
It feels that way. And so what we've tried to do is fill that middle market where the entrepreneur wants to keep autonomy. They have a really great brand, but they want more support. They're like, their vision is bigger than their current team. So anyway, that's what we're doing with Community Dental Partners. Last year, I was elected as president of ADSO, which is the Association of DSOs. So I'm helping lead that. I'm partners in the Dentist Entrepreneur Organization. I'm like all in, like my buddy like sucked me way into this space. And then I just launched a book, DSO Secrets, The Ultimate Guide to Building Your Dental Empire. And so I don't know if we can put a link in the show notes, but it's on Amazon. And then I have a Facebook page called DSO Secrets as well. And people can go there, join, and just kind of search questions and answers or ask questions. But it's really, it's interesting because there's a lot of energy around like DSOs because it's like, oh, well, that's corporate. The interesting thing to me, Mike, and again, I'm an outsider coming in, the moment a dentist hires an associate, I think they're a DSO, right?
Really?
Because that associate wants support from the dental practice, right? No associate like comes in and you're like, hey, dentist, I'm so excited you're here. By the way, you're going to be in charge of HR also. You're also going to decide where the router is going to go and work with the IT team. I've got, Mike with my marketing strategy here. So you'll be doing all that with him. Like, no, they just want to be a clinician. They want the autonomy to just like do clinical work. So doesn't that technically then make you as the practice owner, the DSO supporting them, right? And I think there's actually a really good mindset to take on that approach is, how do I support my associates the best? I think that's good for the space.
So. Yeah, because that's how I found you, Emmett. Like I looked at the DSO secrets, and then I was like, "This is the guy who I want to pick his brain a little bit more about." According to this, really quick, if we can rewind a little bit throughout the brainstorm session of when you were going through the pediatric practice, you were thinking about the mascot and everything like that. You said you had 1,000 first visits in the first few weeks. What went behind the marketing on that? Like, how did for example, we created a mascot, the chipmunk. How are we going to let the world know about all this stuff now?
Right. Dude, I went all out. It was a little bit crazy. And I think probably like most dentists would feel like, can I do that? It's funny because you have spaces that they almost feel like we're too professional for that. I don't know that's, you've been in this space for a long time, right? It's not that it's like inappropriate, but they almost feel, I don't know, a little bit too good for it. Mike, we had a radio show sponsor out there. So they were on the radio show and they're like, come out to Smile Magic. Here's where we're at today. We had sign spinners. So we had people on the street, like spinning signs with the name, you like see this for apartment complexes and stuff, right? We had people going door to door and saying, hey, just want you to know, this is coming into your town. Here's a flyer, etc. So we did a massive investment right out front. And part of the reason I felt comfortable doing that is because we had something unique. Like, I think had we not had something unique, it's like, hey, come into my dental practice. We have white walls and a coffee table with some cool magazines on it. I don't know that I would have been able to, but when you're like, there's this chipmunk and there's this story and they get gold coins, they're like, excuse me, is this a dental practice? What is this? Right. Yeah. We had food. So our grand opening and a lot of our events afterwards, we really celebrate the holidays, bounce houses. So we do pretty massive investments for our dental practices. But I think it all starts, sometimes people are like, okay, wait, you got sign spinners? Okay, I'll get a sign spinner, or whatever it might be. It starts with first taking the time to figure out who your customer is. And then like, what's going to be really important to them, and then go do your marketing strategy. I find one of the things, Mike, when I talk to dentists and I say, hey, who's your patient avatar? Who's your customer you're focused on? Number one answer I get, well, I'm a bread and butter dentist. And I'm like, that has nothing to do with your customer. That has to do with like your expression of your clinical capability, right?
Yeah.
Are you primarily seeing women, children, or guys? Yeah, kind of everybody. Yeah, but who's primarily, right? I think there's so much more opportunity if someone took their practice management software and said, I'm going to break this up by demographic. Like, hey, we're 80% this, we're 10% this, and we're 10% that. How do we make our practice more focused on this primary customer? Like, how could we go deeper? Because all of us have walked into places where we're like, wow, this place just speaks to me. And all of us have walked into places where it's like, I am definitely not the customer for whatever they're doing here, right? And then we've walked into other places, we use the example of Kmart, which might be too old now. Most people don't know what it is, but that's just kind of like, doesn't speak to me, doesn't, someone once told me, like, you either need to be like a Mini or a Hummer, but don't be like a Ford Focus. Like, if I asked you what's your opinion on Hummer, or even better, a little more current, like what's your opinion on the Cybertruck from Tesla? People will have an opinion, and that's great marketing. I think so often we like don't want people to hate us. So it's really hard for people to love us too. So if I was giving like marketing advice, I would say take a little bit more risk to like niche in on who you're really trying to please. And don't be so worried that like, well, then no other patients are going to come in the door. If I make everything about, women, I'll never have a guy walk in the door, right? Just go to a spa. It's clearly focused on women, and there's guys in there.
Yeah.
Smile Magic with Charlie the Chipmunk. You'd be shocked, but 20% of our patients are adults.
Really?
Yeah. Like they're walking in with Charlie the Chipmunk and getting gold coins.
They get gold coins too?
Yeah, of course. We even ask them if they want to be crowned at the end, and some of them are like, heck yeah. And others are like, no, I'm good. Yeah. So,
yeah.
Why is that? Well, part of it is just convenience. Parents want to go where their kids are going. So if you'll see both, that's really convenient, which that's kind of the theme of the day. Like convenience is driving every market. If you want to say what's putting the most pressure on dental practices right now, Amazon. What's putting the most pressure on McDonald's right now? Amazon. What's putting the most pressure? Amazon's driving so much convenience and so much just simplicity of purchasing that every industry, I don't care if you're in healthcare or if you're in retail, and dentistry being, they call it healthcare retail, right? Dentistry is massive pressure to be more simple, more convenient, open longer hours, easier to get in, easier to apply. Nobody wants to talk to any humans anymore, right? So how do I schedule everything online? How do I chat with you online? Like that's just where the marketplace is going. And you say, well, what if none of us do that? This is the scary part. People will just opt out of going to healthcare, right? They'll just be like, I'm playing Candy Crush. I don't have time for that. I got another Netflix series I'm going to watch. And it's like, Netflix is so convenient, right? Netflix has like 10 seconds where it asks, is there anything else you want to do with your life? And then just plays the next show, right? It's just off and going.
Yeah. When you put it like that, where is there anything else you want to do with your life, man? It makes me think so many times I'm like, nah, The Office, and I've seen it like a, so you're right. Conveniences. You said something that even made me like, what if we want people to not hate us? So that makes it hard to not love us?
For them to love us.
For them to love us. That's good, man. That's really good, because I think like what you guys did with the pediatric, I feel like you really believed in your vision and said, here's a huge investment. We're going to make, how much was the investment, if you want me asking?
Oh, it was insane. The dental practice, I mean, now these dental practices are $1.5 million we put in. And then we'll do an operating budget, expecting some level of losses. And and this marketing spend and so forth of another $500,000.
So
So
like,
$2 million, we're all in, and we know that, we'll be profitable and rocking it. Now, these dental practices consistently will be in the $3 to $4 million of revenue mark, within 36 months.
yeah,
So,
yeah, hopefully. But like, if let's just say I already got the practice up and running and everything like that. I heard of this episode. And I'm like, I want to do that. I want to do the sign spinning. I want to do the chipmunk, but maybe, yeah. How much was that like investment, the marketing actually for that?
well, let me say, here's what's more important. Go to your practice management software, figure out who your patient avatar is. Now, for clinicians, let me give you a specific exercise that I think has worked as I've talked to multiple clinicians, because they're like, Emmett, I don't know. Even looking at it, it's like, we got a mix. Okay, I want you to imagine there's 1 million people lined up outside your door. All of them are interested in coming into your practice, okay, which you're really excited about.
Yeah.
They're everything from like someone who's 3 years old up to 100 years old. And there's every, level of disease and need, right? So there's that pediatric Medicaid kid who's like Mountain Dew in a sippy cup, right? And needs a lot of work, might need sedation work, whatever it might be. And then you've got the veneers, you've got the geriatric high end, like everything's right there, right? And there's plenty of patients for you. So you can choose one. You don't have to say, well, Emmett, I better take all of them, right? You're going to prioritize this. Who did you choose first? Who did you say, this is right in my clinical capability. My staff knows how to treat them well. Like they're going to like love me the best. Like, who did I bring in? What did they look like? What kind of car did they drive? Like, really think through this, right? And then you'd say, okay, now who was second? Who was third? Who was fourth? Who was fifth? By doing that activity, you start to get much clearer on like who your patient avatar is. I would not do Sign Spinner, Charlie the Chipmunk for certain patient avatar types, right? Like what you might need to do is join like a mom's club on Facebook would be much better. So you got to take the time to like understand who your customer is and, like who you're excited about. You also have to be careful not to go after some customer just because you think they're up and coming or it's important or whatnot. Like you're going to be all in on this customer. So where do you like to get your CEs? Where are you going to really develop out your clinical capability? In my book, DSO Secrets, I lay it out as what I call an ACE clinician. Where are you going to increase your availability, your capability, and your engagement for the patient? If your patient, so like, here's a problem. Guess when kids really want to be seen? After school.
Okay.
That's when your dental practice needs to be open then, right? Till like 7 o'clock at night, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that so? Availability has to match who your patient avatar is. If you're in geriatric, you don't have that same level of demand. Probably they have probably some more flexibility around timing. Capability wise, what do I need to know on a pediatric patient versus I need to know on these other patient types? Like I want to be the best at that thing. I remember one large DSO said that they figured out that if their doctors did not do 7 endo cases within the first month, that the practice didn't do as well. Now, this was just large data, and they were like, why is that? Well, they figured out that their communities, the patients they were serving, if the doctor didn't do endo cases, guess what the patient said? They didn't say, my doctor doesn't know how to do endo cases. They said, my doctor doesn't know how to get me out of pain.
Yeah.
Right. So they figured out that like, hey, their patients are very concerned about getting out of pain. And that's who was coming in the door. And they needed to provide massive CE solutions. So these doctors had all the equipment and capability to do endo cases like right out of the gate. So again, I think understanding your patient avatar. So what's the capability? And then engagement, right? How you talk to a pediatric patient and their mom or dad has very specific skill sets versus if you're talking to me or you, or, again, an older patient, there's certain things you want to have nailed down. There might even be like certain, marketing paperwork that works better for one patient over another. I think, what's tough about being a clinician is almost 100% of your time going through dental school was around anatomy, chemistry, and being a great clinician. And like 5% of your activity in the dental practice is around that. 95% is dealing with staff stuff, dealing with marketing, trying to get patients in the door, figuring out IT solutions, so forth, right? So it's like your training that you paid so much for ends up being 5 to 10% of the activity as a practice owner that you're doing. At least it feels that way, I think, for most.
Yeah. No, yeah, you're right. That's tough. It makes me wonder, Emmett, like, is it hard to focus on like, let's just say, for example, we're like saying this is the practice owner, like your business partner, right? He had his pediatric practice and he's like, I want to focus on my avatar. But then like I walk into the office the next day, I want to do this, but then team stuff is happening and patient is upset. I just got a bad, you know what I mean? Like all life happens. Where do we even find, like, should we hire someone to help us do this? Or what do you think? Like, should we, because like your partner had you know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah. Chad, that's Dr. Evans. Chad had an interesting philosophy day one. He's like, Emmett, I had this realization that like, while I was going through dental school, learning all this stuff, some poor guy was going through marketing classes, and another guy was doing accounting classes, and some gal was learning compliance, and some gal was learning HR, right? So definitely Chad would say, anytime you can, like, hire it out. Like, he's the massive delegator, and obviously it's played out well for him. When people ask me, like, what should I hire? Who should I hire first? I say, what I do is I just follow my anxieties. Like, where do I have anxiety around something? Because usually my anxieties are very good at telling me something that's important that I don't have capability or time or passion for. That's why it's creating anxiety. Like, it would be very important for me to understand my patient avatar, but I don't have the interest or time, and I don't know that I have a lot of passion around that, right? Well, then hire somebody to do that. Hey, it's really important for me to understand the accounting and my P&L, but I don't have passion or time or interest in doing that, right? So yeah, hire that out. So that's how I've always helped entrepreneurs scale, is because here's what I know is, like, the practice owner, to the extent that they remove their anxieties, they get to move up in the places they do have passion, and it brings massive ROI to the company or to the practice.
I like that. Follow my anxieties. I thought about that. I'm like, oh my God, I got so many anxieties right now. I don't even know where
you got to prioritize them, right?
Yeah, that's true. Awesome, man. So then let's dive a little bit. I want to kind of talk about a little bit more about your business and the DSO secrets type of things, if we could right now,
for sure.
Really quick. So for the practice owner, because I noticed you mentioned something that was really interesting, where it's like, once you hire an associate, you're kind of like a DSO already. How do we continue to scale that? What if we're like, man, you know what? I do plan in my life, I plan to have multiple practices. I want that, how is that possible?
Well, I think step one you nailed, which is I've got to figure out how to hire one associate effectively, right? And I got to be able to support them. What makes dentistry really hard is your customer changes on you. So I just talked about like patient avatar and how important that is. Guess what happens the day you hire an associate? That becomes your customer, right? If you think about it, right, taking care of your associate, that's your largest revenue producing customer. So now you have to start asking yourself, what kind of customers do I want to take care of there? If I'm going to do multiple locations, I'm not going to do it with a bunch of bitter dentists who feel like I don't take care of them, right? I want like raving fans. People are like, this is the best career ever. I feel massive support. If I went out on my own, either number one, I wouldn't, or number two, I would partner with Emmet and his team, or your team, whoever that might be, right? So you don't want to just kind of like, hire an associate. Great. You really want to be thoughtful of like, okay, this is the type of associate I want to hire. And I've broken associates into different phases, but or different personality types, but let's take on one that's pretty common.
Mhm.
Let's say I want to hire that associate who's like really ambitious and is going to learn a bunch of capabilities and will take care of my patients well and so forth. Guess what else those guys and gals want to do? Own their own practice someday, right? Be a partner, right? Like that's where that ambition is going to drive them. So the question you have to have is, do I have an equity plan already in place so that I can keep, because I'm going to be making massive investments and I'm going to love everything they're doing to take care of my patients, or most of it. And I'm going to love how they're engaged and all of that. But if I don't have a clear path for them, then all that investment's going to walk out the door and become my competitor, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you just really want to be thoughtful. Maybe I'm the one that says, no, I just want somebody who like 9 to 5 wants to show up, do their job, not a lot of ambition, just happy to be in a practice. Well, that's fine. But don't be surprised when they like don't want to learn certain clinical capabilities that you feel are like massively important for your patient.
Yeah.
You're like, what do you mean you don't want to learn implants, or you don't want to learn how to do a root canal, and you'll only do fillings and you haven't learned how to do a crown yet, right? And again, I'm kind of segmenting and stereotyping, but I think those who have associates understand there are different avatar types here, different personality types, capability types. You have to think about them as a customer. I've seen practice owners get a little bit bitter at associates, like, oh, they won't do anything I said, or, you know, whatever it might be. And it's like, so is that what you say about your customers too? And maybe they do, but that would drive, you know, massive failure if that's how you think about customers. I think it's more like, man, I am just not taking care of them well enough. What do I need to do better? That will drive a lot of success. So if someone was interested in scaling, you know, I would suggest DSO Secrets book. It's got a lot of the secrets and information that I've used around how do you identify a customer? How do you think about associates? As you move from clinician to entrepreneur, like what are the rough spots there that you need to be thinking about? And then I have this phase called dark tunnel. Dark tunnel is every time you like, okay, if I could just get to this next level, everything's going to be great.
Yeah.
And it just gets like so much worse, you know? And where I see this in scaling is you'll see dentists who maybe open a couple practices. And then when they try to go to the next level, they realize, oh my gosh, I'm going to go backwards on time and money. I'm going to need to hire, you know, a regional, or I'm going to have to hire a CFO, and I'm going to put massive money into this. And then I'm going to need to open another practice to help compensate for that. But when I open this next practice, then I got to hire another person, you know, and I call that the dark tunnel. So how do you work through that? So I've got some strategies in the book around that. And then what does it mean to be an executive versus an entrepreneur? And then the last half of the book is like all tactical stuff. Everything from hiring a CFO and what to look for, all the different executive types are in there. And I don't know, I could look at some of this, but I think just the real life stuff that talking with entrepreneurs, how do you do business development? Do you de novo new locations, or do you acquire? What's the pros and cons of each? So I've tried all the different financing options. You know, that's tough too. You go to do another location, you've been really successful, and then the bank says, no, I'm not going to finance you anymore. You're like, what? When I didn't know anything, you gave me all this money. Now that I actually know what I'm doing, you're saying no, you know, how did that happen? So I lay out different ways to be able to get that financing.
Wow, man. So from clinician to entrepreneur to executive, basically, right? Is like what you're kind of, we're going back. How can we hire our first associate? What are like the steps, if you can tell me, or like the ways or the processes to this? Because that's a question we get quite often.
Well, again, it's kind of Stephen Covey's like begin with the end in mind, right? So make sure that you're clear on what are you trying to hire. If you're not clear on that, you know, and maybe sometimes it's like, if they're breathing and they're willing to work at my city, they're in. I'm interested. But, you know, we've gotten very specific on the type of associate we're looking for. And man, I hate to sound like a broken record, but the more specific you can get, the easier it is to hire, right? Because it's like, do you want to drive the Ford Focus or the Cybertruck? The Ford Focus, you could be like, maybe Cybertruck, yes or no. Like, I'm either in and this is the coolest thing ever, or you won't catch me dead in that thing.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times with associate hiring, we don't have a clear enough message. And so it's hard to like stand out and be different. Like, what are you doing for me for my career? What are you making? How are you making my life so much better? Because I'm going to come work with you, Mike. I don't know that, again, we think about them enough like a customer. And really what I would suggest anyone who's like, well, I just need to go like hire an associate. I would hire a marketing firm to help me do that. Even
Really?
more than a
Wow.
recruiting firm. Right. I mean, recruiting's great, but think about what you're really doing there.
Yeah.
Right. Aren't you really doing marketing to a customer? Like, does your website speak to an associate or does it speak to patients only? Do you have a website for associates? Do you have any like marketing material? If I called you and said, I'm really interested in working with you, what does that mean? Do you have marketing material for that? Or you're like, it means you show up and you work? Like,
Yeah.
what's your pitch? What's your story? How are you going to change my life? Right.
Yeah.
Otherwise you kind of get what you marketed to. You kind of get somebody who's like, I just wanted to live here, so I guess I'll work for you.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah.
Is that what you see?
Yeah, no, I mean, like, I never thought about it that way, where you hire a marketing firm to, because I feel like a lot of the times we almost kind of stumble into it a little bit, where it's like, oh snap, I grew really fast this year and now I have to hire an associate, and then they hire an associate and they're like, oh snap, my associates, this is my third one, he's okay, but I'm now going to open up my next location. And I never had that in the plans last year, like we're kind of like, I guess this is the next step. I guess this is the next step. You know what I mean? Like, kind of thing going.
Totally.
So they kind of skip that process of the associate. You know what I mean?
Yeah. We're not as intentional, I think you're saying, about working on the business. We're working in it so much. And frankly, it's so overwhelming just working in it. And we're trying so hard to take care of the patients. We're a little shocked when that all works well, and it's like, I like yours, like, oh snap, look at how big we are now. Okay, well, sure, hire somebody, right? Like we're not nearly as intentional as we were about taking care of the patient. And so the good news on that is, if you're successful, it's probably because you figured out something on how to take care of patients well. Just apply that mentality to taking care of associates well.
Gotcha.
Apply that same engagement, that same passion. And I think the trap there is you're like, yeah, but patients pay me money. Associates, I'm paying them money. But what are you really paying them? You're paying them money they generated for you, right? So I think it's pretty easy to start going, no, these are my customers too, right?
Yeah.
I need to take care of them like customers, think about them as customers. So anyway, that would be my thoughts.
Yeah. No, I like that. I like that a lot. So then when do you think would be like the best time? Like, let's just say you're thinking of bringing in an associate. Do you think it's better to bring on someone to take over like operations and then an associate? You know what I mean? Like, so it can be all in play, or no, it's like, Mike, don't even think about operations yet until, you know what I mean? Later.
Yeah. That one, I'd go back to follow my anxieties. And the reason is because my capabilities as a practice owner vary so much. Some of us are like, I really need operations off my plate, and I can mentor the heck out of an associate. So if I could hire that operations person, it would free me up so much. I could increase my time in the chair, increase my engagement with patients, and then let's hire an associate. That could be a strategy. Or it could be, listen, I'm as interested in getting like out of this chair as fast as possible. Let's get the associate in here. I'd rather take on operations and start to split my chair time. And, some of this is financially driven too. And the fact that, hey, I do enough high-end procedures or productive procedures that I could feed myself off of 3 days a week and do 2 days of operations and help work on the business and start working myself out. So a lot of this has to do with like the nuances of each situation. My simplistic way of solving that is follow your anxieties, right? So, and maybe a more positive way to say that is also follow your passion. Don't try to be like anyone else. Just because this dentist, ended up opening multiple locations and became the CEO, the next dentist could be just as smart to hire someone and say, I want you to become the CEO of this organization.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because ultimately they have the top seat, which is they're the owner.
Yeah, that's true. You're right. You're right. It's competition is just like you feel a lot of it. It's like a form of copying. That's why you kind of have to be authentic to what you do. Right. And like, it goes back to
The
what you
most
said.
successful ones I've seen just like know who they are and have no problem. Like Richard Branson, right? Everybody knows from Virgin Airlines and Virgin Brands. Fascinating. If you watch any of it, he didn't even understand what net income was until he was in his 50s. And he just was like, I just tired people to take care of that. Like, I know what I'm good at. And I know what he had 300 companies at that point. Right. So it's a good example that I think sometimes we get a little too caught up that we have to be good at everything. And maybe we just have to be good at one thing, which is, delegating and leading, maybe increasing our trust and our ability to take some risk on people.
Yeah, that's true. So one of these questions I want to ask you, these couple last questions, I'm going to ask you that because I want to get in the head of someone who isn't totally involved on the clinical side of dentistry. And one thing is, right now, Emmett, what is one thing, or what do you not like or hate about dentistry?
What do I hate about dentistry? I think that the biggest opportunity we have in dentistry is only in America, only 40% of people regularly go to the dentist. Okay. If you're a business person, you call that penetration rate of the marketplace, right? What's your penetration rate? We're 40%. To give you relative, cell phones are 120%, right? They've actually, people have multiple cell phones at this point.
That's true.
I don't think dentistry gets to 120%. Like I only have to come in 6 months, but I like coming in every week. That's not going to happen in dentistry, especially across the entire population. But think about this, Mike, if we went from 40% to 60%, that's a 50% increase of the entire industry. If we went to 80%, if 20% of people said, heck no, I'm never going to the dentist, but 80% said, no, I'm in, we doubled the entire industry, right? I mean, just like the opportunity. So one of the things that let's say I hate is when I see dentists who are thinking too small. They have this scarcity mindset. They think that the practice that opened by them is competing with them. They think DSOs are competing with them. I'm like, you have no clue who's competing with you. Netflix is competing with you. Amazon's competing with you because people have limited time and money. It's not like we all are sitting around at dinner parties like, so do you like that dentist or do you like this dentist? I've been thinking about dentists all the time. All I think about is dentists and where I want to go to get my dentistry, right? It's not happening. What is happening is, hey, did you see that Netflix? Oh, look what I just bought on Amazon, right? That's what we're competing against. So that's why we're at 40%. What we need to get better at is just align as an industry to do a lot more marketing, just generally, not from an association ADA perspective. But like individually, we need to be a lot more proud of the industry we're in and how powerful it is. And just go out there and like massively compete against everything else people could spend their money on. And be like, oral health is cool. And here's why it's so important. To me, Mike, the best way to do it is for every dental practice to identify who they want to take care of and just go take care of them really well.
Yeah. I like that. That's good. Really good insight. Yeah. Okay. So then what do you love about dentistry right now?
How cool is it to have a product? I get it. We're not like iPhone. We're not Tesla. Those are cool products, by the way. But we have a product that like is one of the most important in healthcare, right? So in my work with ADSO, I think of dentistry, not only should it be integrated with healthcare, not only should it be at the table, it should be at the head of the table. We're the ones as healthcare providers that see the patient population more than any other healthcare provider in the world, right? Like if you said, how often do people go to the dentist? And I said only 40% are going regularly. But if I asked you about primary care, it's like 10 times worse, right?
Yeah.
If I'm like cardiologist, I can name off all the other healthcare professionals out there. Dentists are still seeing the population the most. And so what I love is like, how much opportunity do we have to do more with this patient population, right? Should we be more frontline workers wherever we want? Like, should dentists be able to give vaccines? Should dentists be able to test for diabetes? Should dentists be, not that every dentist is going to want to do that, but like, what's the potential of dentists to have impact on our healthcare system? They're the only ones that say, hey, I'd like to see you again in the next 6 months. Like I've never had a doctor like, hey, Emmet, great blood work. I'd love to see you again in the next 6 months. I wish they would, but only dentists do that. And I think it's absolutely amazing. And I think there's a lot to build on that, to be actually proactive, preventative healthcare. Like we're setting the example for the rest of healthcare on this. So anyway, that's what I love. And I'm like, okay, what do we want to do with this?
Yeah, that's true. That you've opened up a lot of minds right now, because that's true. We do have that opportunity, but we honestly, I mean, have we been doing anything about it? We kind of have. It's just been there. You know what I mean? There's more people who can do
kind of there. Like the most disappointing thing, and I hate to bring this up, is when COVID happened, the best thing the world could have done, at least in America, is say, all right, dentists, how do you want to help? Do you want to do testing? Do you want to do vaccine? Like, how do you want to help? Like, we need you. Right.
Yeah.
Instead, like we shut down. It was like awful.
Yeah.
And then the bars and liquor was open. Right. It's just like crazy. It's like, listen, we're not going to take care of you, but you can drink yourself to death. You know, good luck out there.
Yeah.
So
that's true.
Yeah, we've got to step it up. So that's a huge opportunity. And I think we are. I'm working a lot with ADA. ADSO, great like alignment starting to happen there. But ultimately, like it's going to be where the dentists want to go with their industry. They're totally in control of this. Their mindset, it's going to be up to them.
Yeah. Awesome, Emmett. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much. If our listeners want to reach out to you, find you, where can they go?
Yeah, DSO Secrets Facebook page. Feel free to message me. Jump on Amazon, DSO Secrets book, How to Build Your Dental Empire. And any way I can help, I'm happy to. So feel free to reach out.
Awesome. So guys, that's all going to be in the show notes below too, or in the comment section below. So, or in the description of this video.
And come
below.
to DEO events. We've got a DEO summit. Check out Dentist Entrepreneur Organization. Man, that's like peer-to-peer stuff. So yeah, just had to throw that in there. Make sure that's in the notes.
Yeah, definitely. Guys, so check that out below and reach out to Emmett if you guys have any questions. And Emmett, thank you so much for being with us. It was a pleasure. We'll hear from you soon.
Thank you.